let's have a look at how we can send data to our API. The first thing we're going to do is create a post endpoint on /users, and let's have a look at what we have in the request body. So console.log request body, and send a request to our API. So it's going to be a post, and we're sending to localhost 3000 /user, and let's put something in the body, so some kind of raw data to begin with. I want to send some JSON for later, so I'm going to say test 1. I actually have to send a string. Here you go. And if we look at this, it is undefined. The reason it is undefined is because we need to actually add a body parser as a middleware. So let's do that right now. npm install body parser. And we're going to add it to our application, body parser, require body parser. Here we go. And now we're going to do body parser dot, and we sent some JSON before, do you remember? So let's do exactly that, JSON. And we're going to do, we're not going to pass any kind of arguments here. Let's just leave it that way and see what happens. Restart the server. And now we send this. And now we can see we actually have our test 1. So what we're going to do here is that usually the standard for API is that you use post for creating and get to retrieve information. So I have this get endpoint here /users, which allows me to get back some users. And I'm going to add it here as we do push. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to do users.push, and we're going to push ID. The ID is essentially going to be the length of our current array plus 1, because this is like going to be 2 and we want to start with 1, so plus 1. And we're going to add a username, which we're going to get from the request body, request.body.username. So let's try this. I'm going here, I'm doing a post request, and I am going to send username test user, and now I'm going to do the get request again, and I'm getting back the test user. We would like to do some validation here before we actually push. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we actually have a username here, and I'm going to use a ES6 feature here, which is called destructuring. And essentially this is the same as if I was doing this. This is exactly the same. Those two lines are doing the same thing. So if we do not have a username, we're going to return response dot send status, and we're going to send 400, which is bad format. And let's try that again. This time we're going to put anything here and do a post request, see what happens. Bad request. And then if we're going to try again with username test user 2, and then we do a get request, we can see our user 2. And you'll notice here that we actually lost our user 1, the first one we created. That is because whenever the server restarts, we're actually losing everything that we have in memory. So we're going to have to make sure that this is stored into a database, or maybe on the somewhere that can be persisted and maintain a state. This could be a database, this could be a file, could be an S3 bucket. Usually we go with databases because they're a lot more resilient. All right, before we do that, let's finish our API. So we can get users here, we can create a user. Let's see how we can update a user and how we can delete one. The convention for updating something is to make a put request, and to delete, we just send delete. And the difference here is that we're going to have a URL param, as we saw earlier, which for the put, we're going to read from the body. You know, you're going to pass the username. But for the delete, you don't, because you just need the ID here. One of the things that is important to remember is that the type that you're getting from the params from the URL, they are strings, and this here is a number. So how do you convert that into a actual number? Well, we're going to use parseInt and request.params.id, and don't forget to give it the radix, which is 10 in this situation, base 10 number. So to be honest, sometimes I scratch my head a lot longer to try to understand what is going on here between, you know, this being a string and this being a number. And that's why later on in one of the tutorials, we'll be adding TypeScript to our app. So this doesn't happen anymore. Let's continue here. The first thing we have to do is make sure that we're actually getting our username. And we're going to update the users. So users.find user, and let's find the one that has the ID. And we're going to update the username with the one we received from the backend. And we're just going to say that everything has been going fine. Here we go. So let's try this exactly. So we're trying to get our users. So let's see what we have in our users here. So we have Frodo and Gandalf, and I'm going to update Frodo with Frodo 2, as you can see here. So go with a put 1, send the request, everything went fine. Let's do the get request again, and it crashes. Why is it crashing? Why are you not happy? Oh yeah, of course, I need to remove the /1. Here we go, Frodo 2. And how do we delete? Well, very similar. This time we're actually going to remove it from the list. So we'll still do the parse. And this time what we do is that we're going to edit this list. So I'm going to turn it into a let so I can actually change it instead of a const. I'm going to do filter user, and we do user.id not equal the ID that we received. Status 200. Let's try that. Let's go and delete Frodo. delete user 1. Everything happened fine. Let's try a get request again. Wait, actually. Oh, yes. Of course, I need to reassign the variable first. Here we go. This should work this time. So delete user 1 and then do the get. See what happens. Yay, we deleted it. Okay, so now that we have a fully working API, we want to make sure that we don't break anything next time we add something to this API. So the best way to do that is to write unit tests for our application. Let's see how we do that.